Jordan and Gretzky, Serena and Ruth. Remembering great ones is easy to do.
But what about the no-names who spent their whole lives long snapping footballs and catching sack flies? They're guys, remember that guy. Remember that guy, remember that guy, remember that guy, remember that guy.
They're just gonna remember some guys now.
It's Hayward pulling it down, getting around Zubek. At midcourt, launches the shot. Oh, it almost went in. It almost went in, and Duke is the king of Remember That Guy, the show where we mine our memories for nuggets of nostalgia about peripheral players past and present. Hey there, folks. It's me, one of your hosts, James. I'm going to go real quick and wash the taste of saying anything good about Duke out of my mouth with soap. Real quick, though, I will turn the wheel over to one of my partners in crime.
Diaz with you once again, and we have an incredibly special guest. It is the coach that was on the sidelines there watching Gordon Hayward, only to years later see Gordon Hayward's tibia snap in half while he was playing for him for the Celtics. Please introduce yourself.
You know what? That's right. It's me, Brad Stevens. And you know what? It's way better to be the president than to be the coach because I get to do whatever the fuck I want now. No one complains if we're doing badly, but if we do great, I get all the credit for putting the team together. You know, this is the thing you got to learn. Never be the guy in the front, be the guy in the back. All the benefits, none of the downside.
I especially appreciated his restraint because when all the Ime Udoka shit went down, the natural conclusion was like, okay, well, Brad Stevens is just going to go back and be head coach again. And he resisted that urge, and now the Celtics are right in there contending in the East again. That had to have taken tremendous restraint to not jump back down on the sideline.
Kudos to the boy wonder, Brad Stevens, for resisting the urge, but let's stop talking about two of the three worst moments of Gordon Hayward's life, the third, of course, being when Trump lost the 2020 election. Let's instead talk about what's making memories for us right now.
Well, making memories for me, James alluding, of course, to one of the greatest endings in the men's national championship history. Folks, we got quite the scene set on the women's side for this Final Four. The semifinal matchup, I think, is just the classic thing that we always look for in sports. We have the dominant, transcendent, life-changing offensive talent in Caitlin Clark, who, as of right now, if she goes on and she wins this championship for Iowa, she has a case for, like, greatest collegiate player of all time. It's right there, I think. Because this is a juggernaut of a South Carolina team she's going up against. You got Aaliyah Boston, who maybe should have won Player of the Year again, but Caitlin Clark gets it over her. There's a bit of a revenge factor there for Aaliyah Boston. The best basketball comparison that I can make is this feels like the 2016 Cavs, or the 2017 Cavs, excuse me. Maybe it's the 18 Cavs. One of those Cavs teams with LeBron that were ridiculously overmatched against the Warriors. That is kind of the way I look at this Iowa versus South Carolina game. And I've just been loving seeing Caitlin Clark, man. Fucking 40-point triple-double. Are you fucking kidding me? We need to really dive down to appreciate that. A 40-point triple-double at any level of basketball is absolutely insane. But she's doing this in 8 less minutes than an NBA game with a shot clock that is 6 seconds longer, so therefore fewer possessions are being had. She is fucking bonkers.
I mean, scoring 40 points and getting even 10 assists in a college game is fucking impressive as hell. Forget about the rebounds. That being said, I will just go on record. South Carolina's going to grind Iowa into dust.
In all likelihood, and this is why I think that comparison was perfect, I said if LeBron pulled it off against the KD Warriors, then fine, I'm not arguing anymore. He's the GOAT. It's the most impressive thing I've ever seen a basketball player do. If Caitlin Clark, basically single-handedly, because like she has some nice teammates there. I don't want to say like she's doing it entirely by herself.
We can say it. I don't think anyone from Iowa listens to us.
Well, you know what I think a better comparison is? 79 title game.
Oh, there
Magic
you
Johnson
go. Yeah,
in Michigan State with multiple pros on it against the undefeated Indiana State Sycamores with Larry Bird.
Well, I mean, and honestly, Bird is pretty good analogy for Caitlin Clark's game. I mean, obviously the outside shooting, the court vision.
The paleness.
The paleness, of course. Transcendent and translucent, both of those players. But no, in all seriousness, I think the women's championship, that's going to be the night before this comes out.
Yes, so that will have already come out. We will know who the best women's team in the country is as of the time you are listening to this, aka South Carolina.
Look, I'll take the other side just so we can guarantee the horn someone gets a trombone. Caitlin Clark is going for 50. It's going to be stuff we've never seen before. She's going to win that title. And Iowa is now going to be known for two things: being the caucus, starting off all the presidential election cycles. And secondly, Caitlin Clark delivering the greatest women's basketball championship in the history of collegiate play. That's what's making memories for me.
I do still think LSU has an outside chance. I really hate Kim Mulkey, so I don't want LSU to win. And then there's also Virginia Tech. And that just kind of feels like how this Final Four is there. Yeah, Virginia Tech's also here.
And also the Hokies. Yeah, I mean, I hate that I have to hate Kim Mulkey just because of like her personal like views on life. Because what a fascinating character she is. Like, she truly is a fascinating character that I would like to be
Shot-esque.
Yeah, very Margie. I think that's fair.
Also, real quick, on Staley, I know someone had to ask. I appreciate her just being equivocal about this. She has no reason to coach in the men's game. It is not a step up. Anyone who thinks that is just stupid at this point. I'm glad she just put that to bed. As much as she loves Temple, and we know she loves Temple, it's not a better job. You don't have to go coach at a men's program to prove yourself. Like, no, she's the best.
Here's the one proposal that I do want to make, Xavier, as of this recording. The post of president at Temple University is I would like Dawn Staley
for president of Temple University.
Listen, Dawn Staley was a player coach when she was coaching at Temple. That's one of the most ridiculous things that I think people overlook about her.
It's so crazy.
She was captaining the U.S. team while also playing in the W and making Temple relevant in women's basketball for really the only time in the history of that program that it was relevant. It was because of Dawn, and she was doing everything. So she was a player coach. I believe she can be a president coach. Please, Dawn, just save, not even Temple basketball, just Temple. Temple itself needs to be saved. Please come home, Dawn.
Well, Xavier, as the person with the, I would say, most at least outward investment in the Temple shenanigans, is any of that making memories for you right now?
Yeah, I got a couple things, but I will start with welcome to Temple, Adam Fisher. Yesterday was a weird day where noted Temple hater John Rothstein tweeted about how Temple had offered the job to Missouri assistant Charlton C.Y. Young, and then about 30 minutes later said that, actually, Charlton Young has declined it because of the instability at Temple's leadership with President Wingard stepping down, and a lot of Temple-connected people saying, hey, Young was never actually offered the job. Even now, there's people saying that he was and that he wasn't. Who knows? But within a couple hours, and a little bit of me being very sad, worrying that we weren't going to get any coaches, we did hire Adam Fisher.
Before you go in on Fisher, I just want to say that Charlton Young thing, what that sounds like to me is like, oh yeah, dude, totally a mutual breakup. Yeah, we just both thought it was best if Charlton didn't coach Temple. Totally didn't get broken up with. Promise.
I mean, apparently he's a good recruiter, but he has zero ties to the Northeast. Some people said that he had come to the Philly area to recruit every once in a while, but definitely not in this area a lot. Meanwhile, Adam Fisher, Pennsylvania born and bred, went to Penn State, was on Jay Wright's staff at Villanova, went to Miami and recruited Lonnie Walker and Isaiah Wong to Miami. Isaiah Wong at the Final Four Media Day today straight up said that he was between UConn and Miami, and he came to Miami because of Adam Fisher. All the Penn State players were publicly lobbying for him to get the Penn State job, which, as much as I hate it, is probably a better job than the Temple job right now, just because of how much money they have. So, I'm hoping that we have, someone who's from the area who apparently is a good recruiter. I'm hoping that can help turn it around. I don't have high expectations at the moment because we've lost so many players, all 6 contributing players of the last season are in the transfer portal. We know Caleb Battle's not coming back. We know Damian Dunn's not coming back. Nick Jourdain just committed to Memphis. So Adam Fisher has his work cut out for him. Not expecting much next year, but we'll see what happens with that. Other than that, there are two other things I wanted to briefly talk about. So one, we are recording this on Thursday, March 30th. The Women's Champions League was on yesterday. Arsenal overturned a 1-0 deficit in the first leg to win 2-1 over Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals. There was an insane banger of a goal by Frida Monum that I implore everyone to look up. It was 3 one-touch passes and then a shot from outside the box that curled into the top corner, bar down into the side netting. Literally could not place a goal better than that, and it was fantastic to watch. And then the last thing is, it is opening day of the MLB season. And I know James...
And the NPB season.
And the NPB season. We can't forget about Maikel Franco. James,
almost
you can talk
hit
about
for the cycle, Phillies and Orioles legend Maikel Franco.
So I watched the Yankee game earlier today, and it was really weird because I'd watched some spring training games, but don't think I had gotten used to the pitch clock yet. You know, for context, last year's season opener for the Yankees, it did go to 11 innings, but it was over 4 hours long. And I just gotten used to, in between pitches, I can go up and do something, sit back down and not miss anything. And I missed like multiple entire at-bats if I did that this time. This was a 2 hour and 33-minute game for opening day for the Yankees, which I think is phenomenal. That's going to be so great at keeping things entertaining and engaged. Aaron Judge hit a home run in his first at-bat. Garrett Cole set the Yankees opening day strikeout record with 11. And there was also a really fun piece of trivia that I think you two may enjoy. Blake Sabol started in left field for the Giants today. He is the 17th left fielder to start in left field on opening day in the last 17 years for the Giants.
So they have not had the same person start in left field at any point during that round.
Yes. And I want to see if how many you
3 championships.
I want to see how many you can get.
Jock Peterson, is he left fielder for them?
Jock Peterson started last year.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, was Hunter Pence ever a left fielder for them?
Hunter Pence, 2018.
Mike Yastrzemski?
No.
Okay. He's center or right then, I guess. I'm not going to go much further than that.
I was going to say Luke Voigt, but he never played for the Giants.
Boy, they would not have put Voigt in left field. The dude could barely move.
I mean, that's where you put your worst fielder. First base or left field, baby. That's the 2 positions Rhys Hoskins played. Also, RIP Rhys Hoskins ACL.
Yes, RIP Rhys Hoskins ACL. Hopefully Alec Boehm can pick up the slack. But these are the Giants' last 17 opening day left fielders. Starting in 2007. This is the last year of Barry Bonds. And we have Dave Roberts, Fred Lewis, Mark DeRosa, Pat Burrell, Aubrey Huff, Andres Torres, Michael Morse, Nori Aoki, Angel Pagan, Jared Parker, Hunter Pence, Connor Joe, Alex Dickerson, Austin Slater, Jock Peterson, and now Blake Sabol.
That is a good question, guys. Fuck Aubrey Huff.
Obviously, as a Phillies fan, I'm very devastated that I didn't get Pat Burrell, but I do want to say I did think Pat Burrell, and I didn't say Pat Burrell because he sucked so bad in 2009 with the Rays that I remembered that he got a spring training invite to the Giants, and I thought he didn't even make the roster. But to know that he started opening day 2010, so there's my redemption at least. I can tell you it was 2010. That's insane.
So probably got a ring for that. Damn.
2-time World Series champion, Pat Burrell.
All right, James. I know you have to tell us about Adley. Please go ahead.
Folks, if you want to hear my takes on the situation with the Baltimore Orioles right now, I'm sorry. You're going to have to wait till next week. I am not in an emotional state to discuss them right now. They won today, but there's some other stuff going on. So we're bringing in some help next week to help me process that. Instead, before I completely abandon all sports other than baseball for the summer, I want to focus on hoops one more time for a couple reasons. Not just because of the Hall of Fame, though big news for San Antonio. Spurs legends, Pau Gasol. He is going into the Hall, long awaited, and also like my 2 favorite coaches of all time, Becky Hammon and Pop. Pop probably just played his very last home game in San Antonio the other day. I don't want to start trying to process that yet. And also Eva Longoria's ex-husband. So Hall of Fame news, all excellent. But as we mentioned, there will already be a number 1 women's college basketball team for the year by the time this comes out. And the night this comes out, there will be a number 1 men's basketball team. However, that's not very on brand for us. You know what is on brand for us? The 69th best men's college basketball team. Because I want to talk about the NIT for a second.
Yeah!
So the NIT, once upon a time, was the tournament because it took place in New York and liberal East Coast bias.
Shout
But
out to
it's
1938 NIT champion.
I was
Yeah.
about to ask you all, and I'm glad that you both know the answer. So there we go. This year, we're taking a trip to Paradise City in Nevada, Paradise, Nevada. That is where we are going to have a matchup between the University of Alabama Birmingham Blazers and the University of North Texas Mean Green. The Blazers, as much of a blue blood as you can be in this situation, they've made 15 NCAA tournament appearances to only 12 NIT appearances. It is their first ever time making it past the Final Four in either of those. Though surprisingly, UAB, what if I told you that they are the 40th program all time in win percentage with a minimum of 30 seasons played?
You know, it wouldn't surprise me. A lot of smaller schools who had dominated smaller conferences for a long time would definitely be up there. Like, I'm sure VCU is probably up there too. I mean, Temple's 6th and no one gives a crap about us, so it doesn't surprise me that UAB is that high up.
Well, for the record, they're a little bit higher. I just wanted to mess with you a little bit. They're the 30th program by win percentage with a minimum of 40 seasons. I swapped the two. They do also have in their alumni Spurs legend and convicted environmental criminal Oliver Robinson. But I am not interested in the UAB Blazers because they took down the team that I personally was rooting for in this, the Utah Valley Wolverines. So I am throwing all of my support behind the University of North Texas Mean Green. There are only 2 professional alumni in program history, Jerry Combs and Chris Jones, both currently play in the Israeli League. It is their second ever NIT appearance. They've made 4 NCAA appearances. In 2021, they lost in the NCAA to Nova. In 2022, they lost in the NIT to UVA, which you're telling me that in this stretch of time, where UVA has been on the losing end of 3 of the worst upsets of all time and also national champions, on top of that, they also lost in the NIT? What a fucking bizarre program, the UVA Cavaliers.
Clay Bennett, or not Clay Bennett. Clay
Tony
Bennett's the Thunder owner.
Tony Bennett. It's Tony Bennett.
Tony
It
Bennett.
is
Tony Bennett.
famous lounge singer Tony Bennett. Speaking of other famous people, the senior that is leading the UNT Mean Green this year, Tyler Perry. It is spelled differently. It is Tylor, but Tyler Perry has taken this team that is only in their entire history had 1 5-star recruit all the way to the final here. I'm going to go ahead and call it. Give me some more trombones. UNT Mean Green, congratulations on being the 69th best basketball team in men's college basketball for the 2022-2023 season. I don't have too much more to say, but I have been following the NIT since a couple of weeks ago. I realized that their winner would be the 69th best college basketball team, and I've been preparing this segment. It has been very hard for me to keep that in and not even tell you all this dumb joke. Hopefully it made someone laugh. It definitely made me laugh, but that is what's making memories for me this week.
I have 2 things to add to the NIT real quick.
Please,
One is UNT beat Wisconsin in the semis by 2, only because Wisconsin did not score a single point over the last 9 minutes of the game.
It was 10 total points were scored in that time, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because they had a 8-point lead going into it.
It was 54 to 46, and over the last 9 minutes of the game, UNT scored 10 points, and Wisconsin scored 0, which is hilarious to me.
Neither team scored in the last 3 minutes, I think, right?
It's certainly possible. I know that Wisconsin even got fouled in the last minute and missed both free throws. Wild game. The only other thing that I wanted to bring up real quick is that Mike Oresco is kicking his feet up and smoking a massive cigar because Conference USA has a chance to sweep all postseason tournaments, and all of them are coming to the American next year. Obviously, we're losing Houston, who was a number 1 seed, did end up getting knocked out early. We're also losing Cincinnati and UCF, both more for football things than basketball. Cincinnati, traditionally good basketball. But the American is adding Charlotte, who won the CBI, UAB and North Texas, who, as we just said, are in the final of the NIT, and FAU, the unfortunately better Owls than us at this moment, who are in the NCAA Final Four. So there's a world where Conference USA sweeps all of them, gets all of that tournament money because they get to keep it after the teams leave, but then the American gets all of the teams next year.
One other thing, because, I'm not going to let you just skate past that you were pulling for Utah Valley, James, because I watched that semifinal, and I learned in the time of watching that game enough that now Utah Valley is probably one of my top collegiate programs I'll be supporting as well.
Go Wolverines.
The Wolverines, unfortunately just lost their head coach. The new head coach for the Cal Golden Bears is Mark Madsen. Yes, Mark Madsen, who was the random goofy white guy on those Lakers championship teams in the early 2000s. He did a really funny dance. He wasn't very coordinated. Everybody loved it. You all remember. But so he was their head coach. Getting to say the name Mark Madsen was just delightful. And also, I learned about their president. I don't know how much you know about their president, James.
Oh, absolutely nothing. Next to zero.
She is fucking incredible. So her full name is Mary Astrid Segovia Tuminez. She is of Filipina descent, was born in the Philippines in extreme poverty. She received a scholarship at the age of 5 to attend a private school. Thanks to her education, she was able to get a scholarship to go to Brigham Young, where she attended undergrad. She's since got a master's at Harvard and a doctorate at MIT. She was basically running Microsoft in the Asian region until Utah Valley came and said, hey, you've never done anything in academia before, but you seem like a fucking incredible person. How about you be our president? So they appointed her, and Astrid, since being there, has been like the number one supporter of Utah Valley athletics. Like, she was at the basketball game, obviously. They interviewed her. I read a feature that was done about her, and like she knows like each individual student athlete. They were walking through the athletic hall, and she was like, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. He has a 4.0 in engineering. His girlfriend is in the nursing program here. She knows everything about like every single athlete. And the best part for me was she is a super fan of their wrestling program. When she became president at Utah Valley, she went to the first meet. She literally knew 0 rules of wrestling. Whatever the coach was yelling in support, she would yell the same thing, but 10 times louder in support.
That's the way.
She sits like basically on the bench with the team during matches, and there's pictures of her like literally on the edge of the ring of the mat. I'm shocked that an official has not had to tell her that she like needs to back up and she can't be there, but she's like on the ground, like yelling like, pin him, the shoulders are down. Like, in the 3 years that she's been president, she's learned so much about it. And like, it's an incredible story to come out of such extreme poverty in the Philippines to have the successful life that she's had in America. But most importantly, I think she has demonstrated massive support of those athletics teams. So she is an extraordinary appreciator of guys.
Indeed, deep appreciation for guys there. And I mean, after all, that's what we're here to do. Folks, it is my selection for a category once again. And the guys that I've decided we are discussing today are glue guys. One of my very favorites. I'll admit, when I was growing up, I never had any illusions of like being a star athlete or anything. But you know what I did kind of want to be? I wanted to be that like fourth bat off the bench, you know, the bullpen guy who only comes in mop-up duty, but he's got a smile on everyone's face. I have always dreamed of being a glue guy, even now that I've made my peace with that never being a possibility. It is still a kind of guy that I have always been drawn to. Today, we are going to talk about one of the all-time great glue guys in the WNBA. There have been 1,039 WNBA players going into this season. Only 18 of them have played 425 games or more. So it's a very select group. All but 2 of them started at least 300 games, and one of those 2 started 297. With the fewest points of this bunch by nearly 1,000, the fewest minutes by nearly 1,300, and the fewest games started by 194. Today, I am here to talk about Tully Bevilaqua.
That's a great name.
It is a phenomenal name. Do you have a guess where we are going with the name Tully Bevilaqua? We're going down under again, folks. We're going back to Australia.
Can't keep doing this.
I have very few quotes this time, so I'm not going to do the accent as much. I promise. I will spare you all from that. But we are going to go to Australia. We're specifically going to go to Western Australia, which is kind of like the Texas of Australia.
Like Perth?
Very near Perth, specifically in Merredin. And that is where on July 19th, 1972, Tully Bevilaqua was born. Now, Australia, we all know it started as a penal colony where they sent prisoners. Tully has a very similar origin. She's born Tully Louise Crook. She's born to Jane and Lloyd Crook. Lloyd, big footy guy. Jane, very big field hockey and basketball player. And so she and her 2 older brothers, they get into sports early on. Basketball in particular is what she's drawn to. And it's at a really good time in Western Australia for that. In 1982, we've got the Perth Wildcats, the men's NBL team coming around. And then in 1988, we've got the Perth Breakers. Later on, they'll change their name to the Perth Lynx, which is, of course, a kind of Wildcat. She's in like a very small town, left over from a gold rush, basically kind of like the other side of Australia, where baseball caught on. It's only about 5,000 people, and Perth is the nearest city. But it's like how I'm sure there are some small towns where, yeah, Dallas is the closest city. You just got to go on the highway for a few hours. At this time, basketball's catching on here. She's got the fever. She is very quickly recognized as a huge talent in this town. She and her friend, a teammate of hers, they're on an under 12 team. And they're just so much better that at one point the coach is like, look, I'm sorry, you got to go to the A grade women's league, which is like grown women, including her mom. So she's got her mom as a defensive assignment sometimes in this league.
That's awesome.
The whole town is like, this is our girl. And so they start, holding bake sales and shit to pay for her transportation to Perth, because it is a 6-hour round trip to get to Perth for tournaments when she's doing the Western Australia under 16 team. At this time, one of the coaches, Doris Williamson, takes it upon herself to demand that some scouts come out to check out her team, because they're not getting a lot of notoriety or anything. She goes out of her way. She climbs up the ladder to make those calls, and some of this scouting starts to get enough attention that Tully is going to get a scholarship to the West Australian Institute of Sport. There's a series of schools, of institutes of sport in Australia that exist just as a school, where you're also learning how to be a better athlete. This one had only just been founded in 1983. This is, again, a great decade for her to be taking off.
Kind of like the IMG Academy?
Precisely. During this time, she absolutely idolizes Michelle Timms. This is the first ever Australian woman to ever play pro internationally. Just a couple years later, once you know it, Tully is teaming up with Timms, one of the many times that she will flank a star while she's on the Perth Breakers. Bevilaqua, to describe her game, honestly, really similar to fellow countryman Matthew Dellavedova. Kind of a pest in a loving way, like a defensive pest. From 95 to 97, this is a 5'7", 145-pound guard. And during that time, she three-peats as Defensive Player of the Year. And then in 1998, she gets a call. Now, much like fellow Aussie Dave Nilsson, this is not a call about being drafted, but rather being signed as a free agent in the fledgling WNBA by the Cleveland Rockers for the second ever season of the WNBA. She only plays in 11 games, only about 126 minutes, 21 total points, 23 assists. But you know what? In those 11 games, already gets 12 steals. So she is living up to her defensive reputation. After this, they cut her. And so she returns to the WNBL, to the Breakers. For 2 seasons, another woman in the league, Emily McInerney, had kept her seat warm as Defensive Player of the Year. Tully takes it right back in her first season back. After that, Emily McInerney gets 4 more. So they combined for 8 straight Defensive Players of the Year in this 8-year period once Emily started getting them, except for the one that Tully got here and won in the 02-03 season by Natalie Porter. Emily McInerney wins 9 Defensive Player of the Year awards in 11 years. So put a pin in her maybe for someday. Not going to talk about her too much more today, but definitely some potential there. At this time, now that she's got another Defensive Player of the Year award, it's enough buzz for her to get a second shot at the W with the brand new Portland Fire. She is, for 3 seasons, plays in most games, starts 82 out of 90 of them, 22 minutes a game, 4.3 points, 2.6 assists. Once again, though, her calling card are those 1.4 steals a game. That is what she's there for, to be a disruptive defensive presence. Unfortunately, during this time, Portland goes 37-59 in 3 years. They never make the playoffs, and they do fold after that 3rd year.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I remember the Cleveland Rockers. I don't remember the Portland Fire, and that checks out.
There is nothing to really remember at the Portland Fire, so don't worry about that.
I'm getting Casey Frank vibes from just, the team
I can see that. I can definitely see that. Much like many other players, she is going to get that WNBA European offseason bag. She spends 1 year in Germany with the DJK Wildcats, and then 2 years in Hungary with Sopron Basket. She does win a title with them in 2002, and I just want to point that out because that is one of the 13 titles that Sopron Basket has won in the Hungarian league since 2000. Absolute dominance over there, but she only has a brief time there because back in the W, there is another team that needs Tully. Back in 2000, when the Portland Fire were founded, they were not the only Pacific Northwest team founded at that time. There was a second one, and the Storm, honestly, started out significantly worse than Portland. But because of that, they get 2 very high draft picks. The first one that they use that draft pick on is Lauren Jackson of Australia, the daughter of 2 national Australian team players. Before she's even drafted by the Storm, Lauren Jackson is already WNBL champ and 2-time MVP with the Canberra Capitals. The other, a guard from New York's Nassau County, who had just won her 2nd national title at UConn before this year, the legendary Sue Bird.
Is that the best draft ever?
This is 2 consecutive drafts. There's 2
okay. I
consecutive
thought you were
drafts,
saying that was
Lauren
the
Jackson,
same
then
draft.
Sue
I
Bird.
was gonna say that.
And I'm sorry,
insane.
the best draft ever, as much as I hate to admit it, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers one where they get like 5 Hall of Famers.
Like 4 Hall of Famers, something like that?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
So this is like analogous to Penny and Shaq.
Exactly. This is very Penny and Shaq.
That makes sense.
Fledgling franchise and already quickly turns their losing ways into 2 franchise players. They're the engines, but they need backups. They need a bench. They need, for lack of a better word, glue. Now, Tully, to this point, she's played in 101 games and she has started 84 of them. But they come to her, this contract comes her way, and her role is clear. She will be coming off the bench. The team in their first season improves by a single win, 2002, 18-16. They barely missed the playoffs. You know, everyone's still kind of getting adjusted. That first year, Lauren Jackson leads the team in points. Bird is 2nd in Rookie of the Year to Cheryl Ford. Tully plays 252 minutes, which is, other than her Cleveland year, the fewest she will ever play in a single season. Even like her per 36 stats are down, this just is not a great season for her, but that is because the glue is setting, so to speak, and it does begin to solidify as we head into the 2004 season. She is going to play in all 34 games. She's going to come off the bench for about 10 minutes a night. During that time, she's going to average 2.3 points, but again, 1.1 steals. 1.1 steals in 10 minutes a night. I know that sounds small, but the more I thought about that as I was writing these notes, that's insane.
It comes out to about 4.5 steals in 40 minutes.
It is a 4 by per 36, yeah. And during that time, she also shoots a career-high 42.3% from 3, which is incredible. And her free throw percentage this year is 69.
Nice.
Seattle, powered by largely Jackson and Bird again, they storm, but on bump, to a 20-14 record, 2nd in the West, setting them up for a first-round matchup with the Katie Smith-led Minnesota Lynx, a.k.a. Wildcats. This is the first playoff trip for the Storm and Tully. During the whole playoffs, she's going to average about 12 minutes now. She hits like 1 3-pointer in the first one, 3 assists, 3 rebounds. It's a 70-58 Storm win for that first game. In the second game against Minnesota, Sue Bird is hurt, and Betty Lennox, who's eventually going to be Finals MVP. I'll go ahead and spoil. Things are going to go well for the 2004 Seattle Storm. But both of them are injured and fouled out almost immediately. And so the coach turns to Tully. This is the game that we need you. Tully takes 27 minutes, by far the most in any game for the 2004 season, in a, not do or die, I mean, there would have been a game 3 if they lost it, but in the highest stakes game she's ever played in the WNBA, pours in 9 points, 4 steals, 4 assists, 5 rebounds. The Storm win handily, 64-54. The fans are chanting her name. This whole time, she's been a real fan favorite. Like the Seattle folks, I got to admit, Seattle fans know ball. There's a really great like mid-2000s internet artifact, tullybevilaqua.org. The domain has gone out of use at this point, but you can find it on the Wayback Machine, at least until the Supreme Court destroys that. tullybevilaqua.org was literally just like a fan site set up by 2 Seattle fans for this 6th woman coming off the bench for the Seattle Storm. Has all of the news stories for her during her time there, all of these pictures. It's an absolute labor of love, and it looks like it was designed on GeoCities in about 10 minutes. In the semis, they do lose game 1 to Sacramento Monarchs, but they win out in games 2 and 3. And then the finals, they do the exact same against the Sun. Tully plays at least 10 minutes in every single game, and in 2004, the Seattle Storm do capture their first of 4 titles. A momentous occasion. This is the first professional championship in Seattle in decades, and a lot of people credit Tully Bevilaqua, not with like an outsized role, but with a very solid role there. While she's beloved, she is clearly not the star. Even Sue Bird at this point is not like the star. Lauren Jackson is the star. So I want to focus in on Lauren Jackson for 1 second. She is playing for 3 teams at this point. She's playing for the Seattle Storm, the Canberra Capitals still of the WNBL in the offseason, and the Opals. She is a major part of the Australian women national team. Like, she's at this point surpassed Michelle Timms as the new star Australian woman, and they've been having a very good decade with her there. She joined in 1998 for the World Championships. They do lose to Russia in the semis, but they beat Ukraine for a bronze. In 2000, hosting the Summer Olympics, they lose to the US in a we don't have to say how not close it is finals, and they get a silver. In 2002, once again, they face the US, this time in the semis, and they do lose again, but they beat Korea handily for a bronze medal, so they still have their medal streak going on. 2004 in Athens, Lauren Jackson leads the tournament, 20.9 points, 10 rebounds. They get a gold medal rematch versus the USA. It is a much more respectable loss. Another silver, but the medal streak continues. But, there's clearly a hump that they're trying to get over. I will mention that they've won several gold medals in the FIBA Oceania Championship. It was one that they had every 4 years from 1974 to 2015. Australia wins all 15 that they participate in. Of the 15 that they participate in, 2 of them have 3 teams and 13 of them have 2 teams. It is almost always just Australia versus New Zealand, and it is almost always Australia beating the shit out of New Zealand.
I like the idea of Fiji just coming every once in a while and be like, this is our team.
It is also Fiji that participates. That's the one year that New Zealand wins. They're entering 2006. They're about to head to Brazil for the FIBA World Championship. And Lauren Jackson thinks they need a little extra something. Now, not only has Lauren Jackson been playing with Tully Bevilaqua on some very good Seattle Storm teams, Tully Bevilaqua has actually taken a break from playing from Perth to play for the Canberra Capitals. So she and Lauren Jackson, they've got a great relationship, and she says, hey, we need to bring you in. Tully Bevilaqua had been on some youth national teams, but she had never, at this point, played for the Australian national team. So at the age of 34, Tully Bevilaqua makes her senior team debut, and they fucking tear through this tournament. They only win 2 of their 8 games by fewer than 10 points. Sets up a gold medal match with Russia. They dodge the US this time. US is on the other side of the bracket, but they've made the gold medal match. Russia was the one that took them out in the semis all the way back in 1998. There's definitely a little bit of bad blood. Tully, most of the time, has had her usual role. She does get 30 minutes in one game, because basically 10 minutes into Argentina, it's all garbage time the rest of the way. They end up beating them 83-49. So all 30 of those minutes against Argentina, essentially for the Argentinians, tiempo de basura.
With the appropriate
I gotta respect my Argentinian. I think you dropped out of that class almost immediately when we had the one Argentinian professor at Temple University. But all semester, man.
I took it. I stopped showing up, but I showed up on time.
I forgot you did just grab my notes for the final. Oh, jeez.
I was like, what are we talking about? Blue perfect? All right, cool. Nailed it.
So we get to this final against Russia. And in addition to just spunk and bench presence, she contributes 11 solid minutes, 1 assist, 4 points, a perfect 4 for 4 free throws, and she got herself a steal. Tully Bevilaqua is not getting out of the finals without at least 1 steal. At the final, Australia has won the game 91-74. Over the tournament, she averaged 3.2 points, 1.5 rebounds, 1.1 assists, and a clean and tidy 1 steal. And you know what else she got? 1 gold medal. The country's first. She's got that to go with her WNBA championship. Tully Bevilaqua is a double gold. I want to make this clear. Has never averaged double digits in any category of anything except for minutes. But she's got a championship. She's got a world championship. One last fun note from her national time before we go back to the W for a sec. So I said earlier she's a 5'7", 145 guard. That's 170 centimeters. Except when she's with the national team, they do list her at 164 centimeters, which is actually 5 and 4.5 inches.
That's a pretty sizable difference.
It's an immense difference. Like, that's a lot bigger than Kevin Durant lying about being 7 feet tall.
Well, I mean, it's like Allen Iverson. There's no world in which Allen Iverson is 6 foot. Allen Iverson was very clearly like 5.
Oh no, yeah, no. But we're going back to America now, where she can at least say that she's 5'7", because I don't know, we use the English system. We don't understand that metric shit. It's all foreign to us. So sure, you can trick and lie to us. After that Seattle title, that does kind of end her time as a bench presence. I will acknowledge that. She takes a contract after this, capitalizes on the championship to start with Indiana. One more time, you just have to go back to tullybevilaqua.org. When she leaves, the last thing that you can find, the last snapshot on the Wayback Machine, is this long post on the front page basically saying, to any Indiana Fever fans, we turn this domain over to you. Here's how you can contact us to keep the love for Tully Bevilaqua going. Unfortunately, Indiana, no one took that torch up. But what they have over the next few years is a perfectly fine point guard. She does start starting again. She starts 188 out of 197 of her games there. She's there for the next 6 seasons, the Indiana Fever. Over that time, averaging 26.3 minutes, 5.6 points, 2.4 assists, up to 1.8 steals now. Still like a thrilling character at this point, though. It is a 2007 Sportsmanship Award that she wins that I think really shows like how much everyone in the league, like we know the fans love her. All of her teammates love her as well. She is just a huge part of the culture of every team that she goes to. She's just very fun. Like very early on, she gets this profile written about her, and she makes the reporter that is doing this profile for ESPN play her in a game of horse. She even gives them a 6th letter. She lets them play horsey, just add a second E and elongate it. And then she says, oh, well, in Australia, when you lose horse, you gotta drop trouser and then do a quick lap around the court. Makes the reporter do that in front of all of the members of the Indiana Fever. So, like, this is brought up in other interviews she has that season about how, like, oh man, it was great when you made that reporter run pantsless around the court. And there's one other interview I want to focus in on in 2005. Talking to her about her personal life for a little bit. In 1995, she had married Dirk Bevilaqua, so that's where she'd picked up the last name. They got 2 kids and dogs, and she says about how tough it is, like leaving the kids and dogs behind. Her husband has started a manufacturing company, a plastic that replaces galvanized steel. This takes up like several questions. And one other question they ask, what are the secrets to a long, healthy relationship? To which Tully replies, the key is not being together for half of it. So in 2013, Tully gets remarried to her partner, Lindsay, who had also previously had a husband, but now the two of them have come to some realizations about themselves and abandoned their husbands for one another.
Yay!
Here's the thing, though. This is not technically legal in Indiana in 2013. In fact, nationwide, it is still not legal. There's a state-by-state cases, certainly. But they become very outspoken about this. Her and Lindsay Bevilaqua want to point out, though she broke up with her husband, Dick, she has kept the name Bevilaqua since then.
It is a good last name, objectively.
It's a great last name. In 2015, major parts of the Defense of Marriage Act, which is a hideous scar on our national consciousness, so glad that that's all been struck down. They are now able to have their marriage recognized nationally in their state, but even now, they can't have it recognized in Australia. It is not legal there yet. You can actually get a better civil union for a long time in the 2000s in Australia than you could get, like, rights-wise here in America. You could get most of the things that people want, except for the right to say that you are legally married to someone. And at the end of the day, like, sure, it is great to have power of attorney. It is great to be able to file jointly with taxes. That's all wonderful, but it's pretty sick to also just say you're married to someone and not have any other asterisks attached to it. So they start to keep leading this fight there in Australia. As of 2017, it is now legal. She, by this point, has been long retired from the WNBA. She had those 6 seasons in Indiana. After that, she does spend 2 years with the Silver Stars. This is San Antonio legend Tully Bevilaqua. Now, she and Lindsay, they live together in Indianapolis with 2 kids. They have a gym that Lindsay manages. She's done a lot of commentating through all kinds of like WNBA stuff. For the WNBL, she's done some. She's gone back to Perth for a lot of stuff with the Wildcats, who temporarily changed the name of the West Coast Wave and then go back to Wildcats. Because eventually, every single team, the same way that like everything eventually evolves into Crab, every team just becomes Wildcats after long enough. And she gets maybe her highest honor when she enters the Western Australia Hall of Champions. That is kind of the biggest get that she has had since then. But I want to take a second to go back to that illustrious 18 that I started this whole thing off. The 18 WNBA players of 1,039. Again, this is slightly more than 1% of all the players that have ever participated in the WNBA. Like I said, she's last in games started. She's last in minutes. But you know what? She's 16th in win shares. She is 13th in assists. She is 8th in three-pointers. And she is 6th in steals. So, like, she might not do much, but she knew how to accept a role that was going to have her step into the shadows of some people that were better than her on her own domestic team, were better than her here in the W, were better than her on her national team, because she knew how she could help prop them up. And they knew that when she helped prop them up, Tully Bevilaqua deserved that shine. All of her teammates love her. And, she got that sportsmanship title. And that's why she's got a WNBA title. That's why she's got world championship gold. And that is why I do believe that all of this makes her a guy.
Yeah, zero dispute that Tully is absolutely a guy. I think one of my favorite basketball archetypes is the undersized point guard that just annoys the shit out of the opposition. And this is obviously right up that wheelhouse. Stepping up when the big moments do arise and more is needed, and then still being able to fade back after that, I think, is like the mark of like a real, true, great teammate and obviously a great guy.
We talk about the Seattle Storm as, maybe not as a dynasty, but they're a powerhouse. They have, until this year, always been in the championship conversation because they've had one of the best players in the WNBA, be it Lauren Jackson, be it Sue Bird, be it Breanna Stewart. Hell, Jewel Lloyd's still probably, like, at worst, top 15. So they are a solid team. And you just think, man, if they've been able to keep this Sixth Woman of the Year, not actually Sixth Woman of the Year, but in my heart, Sixth Woman of the Year. Who knows? Maybe they've got even more. Maybe there's no way the Aces ever catch them. I mean, maybe as an Aces fan, I'm happy that they've left that door open for Asia Wilson to someday just utterly destroy that franchise's records. But either way, that is my guy this week. Tully Bevilaqua. I adore her. I promise I will try not to bring us back to Australia for just a little bit.
Yeah, you're going to pick New Zealand next time.
I do believe this is my fourth Australian with her and Dave Wilson. Stephen Bradbury and Peter Norman. Peter Norman is the other one from the Tommy Smith and John Carlos 1968 Mexican Olympics. So I have an affinity, it appears, for Australia. I didn't know I had this strong affinity for Australia, but I do. And I have affinity for Tully Bevilaqua. However, I'll bet there might be some other guys that I have an affinity for this week.
Right. Well, obviously, Bevilaqua had an affinity for being that vital piece of a championship roster that perhaps gets overlooked, but nonetheless is there in big moments, delivers when called upon. And I want to talk about a guy that has some pretty incredible honorifics associated with his name. We're still going to stay in the realm of basketball, but we're going to talk about the NBA. We're going to talk about a guy that is one of only 4 players in NBA history to win back-to-back titles with 2 different teams. He is also one of only 9 players in NBA history to win 7 or more titles, but he is the only one that was not named Bill Russell or was a teammate of Bill Russell. I'm talking, of course, about the most clutch shooter in the history of the game of basketball, Big Shot Robert Horry.
This is
We're
pandering.
We're already bringing
This is
pandering out
pandering.
this early into the season. Okay, yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it,
But
baby.
here's the thing: it's such a long, winding story with Robert
It is.
Horry that at moments in this story, I will be both pandering to you and whatever the opposite is, talking shit to you. That's not really works. I'm gonna be bringing up bad memories for your franchise, in addition to good ones. Is the most plain way I can state it. Because Robert Horry doesn't care who he does it for. He's a mercenary. All that guy is there to do is hit big shots. But first, obviously, start at the beginning. August 25th, 1970, Robert Horry Jr. is born to Robert Horry Sr. and Layla Horry, born in Harford County, Maryland. They don't stay there long.
Harco!
Is Harco the Baltimore Delco?
No, so Baltimore does not exist in a county. Baltimore is a distinct municipality. There is a Baltimore County that surrounds it, but we are not part of it. We are our own municipality separate from that.
Philadelphia is a similar thing.
Yeah, Harco is where Cal Ripken Sr. is from, hon. Harco's where like Havre de Grace, you got Aberdeen, you got all that out there.
Okay.
Think everything that you don't actually talk like that, James.
Here's the thing, I had to work real hard not to talk like this, hon.
You've done a good job. You've done a great job of disguising that accent. But no, I mean, yeah, there's enough parallels there. It's enough for me to headcanon it as your Delco. But the Horry family doesn't stay there long for a couple of reasons. First of all, Layla and Robert Jr. are going to move to Andalusia, Alabama, Robert Sr.'s not going to go with him because shortly after Robert Jr.'s birth, Robert Sr. said, hey, this whole dad thing doesn't sound great to me. I'm going to move to South Carolina.
It's shitty to name your kid after you and then dip out.
Like
So it's
almost
just like Robert
instantly.
Horry Jr. Oh, where's Robert Horry Sr.? I don't fucking know.
I mean, part of it probably was so like Robert Sr. was a staff sergeant. So like, I'm sure like the military commitment like put certain strains on the relationship. So it's not like he was just like a total piece of shit. He did keep contact with Robert Jr. throughout high school. And in high school, Robert Jr. is one of the best players in the state of Alabama. In fact, his senior year, he was awarded the Naismith Alabama State Player of the Year, which is good enough to go to the biggest program that any Alabama high school student would ever dream of attending, Alabama.
Not the University of Alabama Birmingham Blazers?
Not the UAB Blazers, not the Auburn Tigers,
Not Huntsville.
not Huntsville, not Alabama State. I don't know if they have directional Alabamas. Do they have North Alabama?
Is there an Alabama
This is
A&M?
South Alabama.
Alabama Tech? I don't know. We can just keep saying
South
things.
Alabama is in the Sun Belt.
There you go. They totally know their directions down there. So he goes and rolls with the Crimson Tide. Robert is going to play with a pretty notable teammate. His time there overlaps with Latrell Sprewell. So Robert Horry and Latrell Sprewell play for head coach Wimp Sanderson. Yes, Wimp as in puny, as in small, as in weak, as in person that is bullied. Wimp Sanderson. Perhaps Wimp Sanderson will deserve a deeper dive at some point. But for now, he's the head coach at Alabama. And this is a pretty successful period within the history of Alabama basketball. Across 133 games that Robert plays, he's going to start 108. The Tide are going to win 3 SEC titles. Twice they'll advance to the Sweet 16. They never get further than that. And Robert Horry at this point isn't known for the shots that he's making. He's known for the shots that he is rejecting. He is a defensive force. And at the time that he leaves Alabama, he is the program leader all time in blocks, 282. As a senior, he's also named to the All-SEC team, the All-SEC defensive team, the All-SEC academic team. There's an SEC team, and it's not the rookie team. Robert Horry's on it. On the basis of this, he's drafted to the Houston Rockets with the 11th pick in the 1992 NBA draft. And almost immediately, the legend of Big Shot Rob starts to form. Now, this first season is the 92-93 season. This is the last year of the first Jordan three-peat. So clearly they don't win the championship this year, but that doesn't mean Big Shot Rob doesn't have some moments to try to come onto the scene. Game 7 of the 1993 Western Conference semifinals in Seattle against the Seattle Sonics. Seattle still needs an NBA team. They are feeding the ball to Hakeem Olajuwon. Very quickly, he gets doubled. He kicks it out to a rookie, Robert Horry, who's been left wide open from 20 feet out, and Robert drains it. Puts him up 2. Seattle goes on to tie. Seattle forces overtime. Seattle wins. But this is the first time that in a big moment, in a big game, not the guy you'd expect to end up with the ball, but it gets kicked to Robert Horry. He's in the right spot at the right time, and he makes that shot. The following season, the whole Robert Horry story almost gets derailed before it even takes off, really. He's going to be traded in this 1994 season to Detroit alongside Matt Bullard for Sean Elliott. Sean Elliott, most well known for his time with the Spurs, also known for the fact that he had like a pretty serious kidney disease that prevented him from playing basketball. This trade is what led to that physical that led to the kidney disease being discovered. The trade was voided. So because of this transaction, 2 things happened. First, and probably most importantly, Sean Elliott's life might have been saved by the fact that he had this physical and had this disease discovered. But for the purposes of our story, the more important part is Robert Horry is still with the Houston Rockets. And there's other examples of this happening in basketball history. Allen Iverson was almost traded to, I believe, the Grizzlies in like 99. And then Matt Geiger had a no trade clause and said, nah.
This is interesting. I was thinking of that exact one. I was thinking of, for instance, like when the Juan Soto trade almost got scuttled. But every time, that's someone else on the same team as the guy that we're discussing. This is one of the few times that it's the player that would have been coming over that has rejected the trade.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and getting back to Robert, obviously, this wasn't a case of anybody having a no trade clause. This was like a serious medical condition has been discovered. Obviously, we're glad Sean Elliott's still with us. Sean Elliott went on to have a pretty big moment for, I think, the 99 Spurs on the road to their title. So through this failed transaction, all great things are possible. And because of that, Robert Horry sticks around. And that 93-94 Rockets team, of course, the first year, sans Jordan, they go all the way. They win the NBA Finals. No major moments for Big Rob in this one, but he does get reign number one. Going forward to 95, though, this is when the legend of Big Shot Rob Horry really starts to develop. So in the Western Conference Finals, they are going against the San Antonio Spurs. Game one, Spurs lead 93-92 in the final moments of this game. Robert Horry is 1 of 5 from the field as we enter this last minute. Again, same scenario as that rookie year I described. They feed it to Olajuwon. Olajuwon gets hard doubled. And they kick it to Robert Horry, who is like astonishingly open. Like, if you play basketball, there's sometimes when you get the ball and you're so wide open that you like can second guess it. Wait, why the fuck am I so open? Like, do they want me to take this shot? You can get in your own head about it. That's not what Robert Horry does. He very calmly takes one step, one dribble in, nails the 17-footer to put the Rockets up 1. They go on to win that game, and they close out the Western Conference Finals. So they advance to the 95 NBA Finals against the aforementioned in this episode, Penny, Shaq, Orlando Magic. And it's not a big shot that I want to talk about first with his NBA Finals performance in 1995. I talked about the blocks earlier, and I've always talked about how much I love stocks. So let's get into the other side of that stock, which is the steal. In Game 2 of the 95 NBA Finals, Robert Horry is a fucking defensive menace. He notches 7 steals in this game. To this day, it is still the record for most steals in an NBA Finals game. And the best part, dear friends, is would you care to guess the date on which Robert Horry notched this incredible statistic?
Ooh, is it June 9th?
It is June 9th, and it is so nice that he was able to do his incredible thing on this lovely day that we love to celebrate. On the back of this performance in Game 2, they win their 2 games in Orlando. They've not only taken back home court, they are now in a commanding position as they return to Houston for Game 3. They're up 101 to 100, and with 15 seconds left, we have that same formula that we've already described a couple times. Ball gets down to Olajuwon, they hard double, kicks it out to Horry at 3, nails it. They go up 4 with 15 seconds left. They end up closing out that game. They sweep the Magic 4-0, and Hakeem Olajuwon continues his rampage against big men throughout the NBA. David Robinson in both of these trips, Patrick Ewing the year before, Shaquille O'Neal now. But we're not here to talk about Hakeem. We're here to talk about Robert Horry. Robert would say that 95 championship was the one that he was most proud of in his career because famously, while it was a back-to-back for the Rockets, they really struggled that year and they were actually the 6th seed. So very impressive title. And it's the one that would resonate most with Robert Horry.
Well, and that's also like, I mean, not to step on your feet too much, but the fact that that is the domino that starts what will split up the Magic is insane. Like the fact that as a 6th seed, they deny that championship. I mean, who knows what happens if Penny and Shaq are still there, but please let us continue with the story of Robert Horry because we will talk somewhat, I'm sure, about what does happen because that did go through.
That there will be more overlap with Shaquille O'Neal. For the 95-96 season, Rockets are not able to pull off the three-peat. And one of the reasons why they feel that they didn't quite reach their goal this year is, they have Olajuwon, they got Clyde Drexler, they have a good team. But Robert Horry is a little trigger shy in certain moments. He's not taking enough shots. So they're going to get him out. They're going to package him in a trade along with Sam Cassell, Chucky Brown, and Mark Bryant to the Phoenix Suns for Charles Barkley. There's nothing really too notable with this tenure with the Suns. The only thing that's really worth noting is Danny Ainge is no longer playing for the Suns at this point. He's now their head coach. And at one point this season, Robert Horry and Danny Ainge get into a pretty serious fight on the court. No punches are exchanged, but does throw his towel at Danny Ainge's face. Going to lead to a rift that's going to ultimately lead to Robert Horry's trade to the Lakers in exchange for Cedric Ceballos. This is the Kobe Shaq Lakers. 2000, they get their first championship against the Pacers. No signature big shot Rob moments on this run. He does average 27 minutes in the playoffs, 7.6 points, 5.4 boards, and he gets ring number 3. But no real signature moments in this run. The next few years, though, is really where the legend of Big Shot Rob starts to form. 2001 NBA Finals, Game 3. I always love to reflect on Game 1 of this series because it is when Allen Iverson single-handedly beat perhaps the greatest team of this century, the 2001 Lakers. But like what gets forgotten a lot when people talk about that series, like, yeah, okay, Sixers won Game 1, and then they were just overmatched, so, they lost in 5. Game 3 of that series, we're back in Philly. It's 89-85 Lakers, and the slashing guard for the Sixers gets to the rim, gets the and one. So thanks to that contribution by Kevin Ollie, it's now a 1-point game. The Lakers inbound. There's a hard double on Kobe. Immediately swings to the corner to Robert Horry. Robert Horry hits the dagger 3 to put the Lakers back up 4 with about 40 seconds left. And as mentioned, they go on to win that series in 5. But Robert Horry misses that shot. All of a sudden, Allen Iverson's coming back down on the other end with a shot to take the lead with any bucket. Doesn't even need a 3. Big Shot Rob misses that. I am perhaps a fundamentally happier and better human being. So really, the after effects of Robert Horry already being seen in the development of my young consciousness, driving that dagger straight into my heart. Lakers
So,
winning.
listener, if you've ever thought that Diaz is a little too cynical and broken as a human being, it's all Robert Horry's fault.
All Robert Horry's fault. That absolute bastard. 2002, the legend of Big Shot Rob develops further. In the first round, playing against Portland and our boy Arvydas. And in watching this clip, it was hilarious to me because Bob Costas is on the call. And Ruben Patterson was known as the Kobe stopper. Like, it was what he said it during the play-by-play. Like, Kobe drives, Ruben Patterson, the Kobe stopper's on him. Apparently, the Blazers didn't think that Ruben Patterson was the Kobe stopper because they doubled off. They left Robert Horry open in the right corner, kicks it to him from down 91-89. Horry swishes, 92-91. Lakers go on to win, and that was still when it was the 5-game first-round series. So they close out the Blazers because of that game. When you think of the 2002 Lakers, though, you think of that Western Conference Finals against the Kings. And this is really now kind of the apex of Big Shot Rob, as people think of him. The Lakers are famously feuding with everybody. Kobe and Shaq basically fucking hate each other by this point. And when you have this division between your two best stars, you need a glue guy to hold the team together, not let things fall apart, and to deliver in the big moment. If you're a basketball fan, you've seen the clip. I'm not going to spend too much time describing it. Kobe drives, misses. Shaq gets the rebound. He misses. Vlade Divac's trying to run out the clock. He slaps it out. He thinks he's killing the clock. Instead, he puts it right in the Robert Horry shooting pocket, steps in rhythm, drains the 3 at the buzzer. Lakers tie the series at 2 in that pivotal Game 4. If Robert Horry misses that shot, they go down 3-1. Sacramento maybe has a championship. But Robert Horry, of course, never misses these shots. He makes that one. And the Lakers go on to close out that series in 7. They take care of the Jason Kidd, Vince Carter Nets in the finals. And the Lakers three-peat now on the back of Big Shot Rob. In 2003, they're going for the 4-peat. And they're matched up with the Spurs in the Western Conference semifinals. The series is tied 2-2. The Lakers are at one point in this Game 5 in San Antonio, down 25 points. But they fight all the way back. It's 96-94 with the Lakers having the ball. And it's that same thing that we've already said. It used to be Olajuwon in Houston. Now it's Kobe in LA. They double Kobe. Robert Horry is left open on the left wing for 3. And I shit you not, this thing hits like every single part of the rim. It rattles. It pops up a little bit. It sits on the front rim a little bit. But it's the anti-Kawhi.
I was about to say sort of a spiritual cousin to that Kawhi shot.
It's the spiritual cousin. It's the evil twin. It somehow doesn't go in. It's mystifying looking at this shot to see how many times it hits the rim and then doesn't go in. Robert Horry went 0 for 18 from 3 in that series against the Spurs.
A
The Spurs-
Scooty Randell-like performance.
Very Scooty-esque, and if it were not for his already 5 championships, he would probably get a lot more slander for that series.
To have an entire hand's worth.
An entire hand's worth. But after that loss leads to the Spurs championship in 2003, Robert Horry's now a free agent, and he's going to do, really, he's, I think, laying down the blueprint for Kevin Durant. So Kevin Durant wouldn't have been empowered to leave the Thunder to go to the Warriors if it were not for Robert Horry betraying the Lakers to then sign with the San Antonio Spurs. It really didn't have much to do with that. He still had a lot of family in Houston at this point, so close enough to be able to be closer to some family. For the 2004 season, Spurs don't go on to the finals. They don't win the finals. That was the Lakers-Pistons year when the Pistons pulled off that incredible championship. Then for 2005, the Spurs do make it back, and they're going against those Pistons that are looking for the opportunity to become a back-to-back champion themselves. And we're going to talk about Game 5 of the 2005 NBA Finals. Because while that single moment of the shot against the Kings is probably the single moment that stands out most in the career of Robert Horry, this Game 5 in 2005 is absolutely absurd. So first of all, let's consider Robert Horry in 2005 is 34 years old. In August of this year, he will turn 35. But he's still an important role player. He's coming off the bench. In this Game 5, he would play 32 minutes. The starting center for the Spurs, because they always did the funny thing where we pretended that Tim Duncan's not a center. Would you care to guess who the starting center is?
So who the starting center is? I have absolutely no idea. Because again, yeah, we're just committed to no, he's a power forward, just so we can call him the greatest power forward of all time.
He is the greatest power forward of all time. That was totally not a center. And the starting center in that game was Nazim Muhammad.
Nazim Muhammad, that's a good guy.
Love Nazim Muhammad. Former Sixers legend Nazim Muhammad as well. But so, I mean, he plays 32 minutes, which is more minutes than Nazim Muhammad in that game. And this is a back and forth game. Defensive struggle. It goes to overtime. We're at about a minute 30 left in overtime. Robert Horry gets it swung to him on the perimeter. Everybody knows Robert Horry, big shot maker. So obviously they run out to contest. He pump fakes and drives into the lane and has one of the most absurd posters, maybe the greatest poster, when you consider the time in the game in NBA Finals history. He fucking yams on Rip Hamilton. Stuffs him under the rim, pulls his underwear up, gives him a wedgie, makes him lick the fucking 20-degree ice pole, and he gets his tongue stuck to it. He bullies and is very mean to Rip Hamilton. And he gets this and one dunk. Obviously, he makes the free throw. Now we're at a 1-point game. As we head into the final minutes of this game, you're down 2. Time's running out. Ball gets into the paint. Defense collapses. Robert Horry stays at the 3-point line. Gets it kicked out to him. Drains the 3. Nothing but net. To win that pivotal Game 5 in Detroit, to now send it back to San Antonio, where the Spurs only need to win one of these 2 games. For that game, Robert Horry was the second leading scorer for the Spurs. Tim Duncan, 26 points on 11 of 24 from the floor. Robert Horry, 21 points on 7 of 12 from the floor. Hilariously enough, he's a -4 in that game, which is why I think plus minus is a bonkers, stupid stat to use in an individual game context at least. But 21 points, 7 boards, 2 assists, no stocks for him. Again, he's 34 by this point. But 5 of 6 from 3, including that massive go-ahead 3 to go ahead and clinch Tim Duncan's 3rd reign, but Robert Horry's 6th. Bill Simmons would say of that Game 5 performance by Robert Horry, Horry's Game 5 ranks alongside MJ's Game 6 in 1998, Worthy's Game 7 in 1988, Walt Frazier's Game 7 in 1970, and every other clutch finals performance over the years. Really, I mean, this is he has none of his athletic gifts with him anymore. He is there to be very much glue guy, know your role, hit your open shots when they come to you. And he fucking posterized Rip Hamilton, who is one of the best defenders of that era. It's remarkable. And I would encourage listeners, I would encourage both of you to look up that dunk if you haven't seen it. Because, like, if the rim's 10 foot, Robert Horry got that ball to, like, 10 feet 1 inch. Like, he barely snuck it over the rim. But he bodied the shit out of Rip Hamilton in doing so. It's an incredible dunk. We're still not done, though, with the big moments for Robert Horry. 2007, in the first round against the Nuggets, he hits a big corner three late off of an assist from Eva Longoria's husband to put the Spurs up 4.
Ex-husband.
Husband at the time.
Fair. So Eva Longoria Parker's husband.
Eva Longoria Parker's husband kicks it to Robert Horry in the corner for a big 3. They win game 4 to go up 3-1 in that series with the Nuggets. It's now a best of 7. They closed it out in 5.
Was this the Nuggets team with Marcus Camby?
This would have had Marcus Camby. This would have had Carmelo Anthony. This would have had Allen Iverson.
I think JR was also on that team.
When 2007 the year he got that Defensive Player of the Year too?
Defensive Player of the Year, 2007, NBA All-Defensive First Team, Marcus Camby, shown up by a, at this point, 36-year-old Robert Horry.
Marcus Camby, eat your heart out. You can protect the rim, but you can't protect that corner 3 from going in. But his most significant contribution to this 2007 Spurs championship, Robert Horry, never known as a dirty player, never known as a guy to do anything untoward, except for the series in 2007 against the Phoenix Suns when he hip-checked Steve Nash into the sideboards. Now,
yeah, that was bad.
Listen, and I've never endorsed trying to injure somebody, but Steve Nash wasn't injured. So that's why I think this is perhaps the greatest play that Robert Horry ever made, because, like, I was very much a glue guy on my basketball teams growing up. And the thought that I always had in my head, and I never executed it, but it was, if I'm guarding the other team's best player and I get us both ejected, that's a net positive for my team. That is, like, perhaps the best positive contribution that I could ever make. Robert Horry doesn't just do that. He gets a 2-for-1 special. He hip checks Steve Nash. Amari Stoudemire and Boris Diaw come off the bench to, push and shove and not punch, but do all the things that we do when we want to show that we're big, strong men and we're defending our teammate. But this happens after the Malice at the Palace with all the reforms that basically made it a very clear black and white. If you leave the bench during an altercation, you're getting suspended.
If I may for a moment, we have talked about Sean Elliott when he wasn't on the Spurs in this. We have talked about Robert Horry when he wasn't on the Spurs with this. And we now talked about Boris Diaw when he wasn't on the Spurs with this.
I think really the ultimate lesson is just sign for the Spurs and bad things won't happen to you. As long as you're with the Spurs, you're going to be on the good end. But yes, hip checks Nash. Diaw and Amari get suspended for coming off the bench. Spurs go on to win that series. Spurs go on to dog walk the LeBron James and company Cavaliers in the 2007 finals. And Robert Horry now has ring number 7, which puts him in that illustrious company with Bill Russell and Bill Russell's teammates. A fun thing to note, from 93-94 season through the 2002-2003 season, one of Robert Horry or Steve Kerr was on the team that won the NBA Finals every single year.
And once again, Spurs legend, Steve Kerr.
Spurs legend, Steve Kerr. So a whole decade there where we have all these debates about roster construction. All you had to do was sign Steve Kerr, Robert Horry, and you got a coin flip chance. Today, Robert Horry is still very involved in the game of basketball. He is a post-game analyst for the Lakers, runs and coaches an AAU team, which is AAU Big Shot, based out of LA. In September of 2019, he married his longtime girlfriend, Candace Madrid. Great name. In spring of 2021, he returned to Alabama and he finished his degree. Never officially graduated from Alabama, but went back, got his degree. But the most recent update that we can offer on Robert Horry maybe isn't the best one, but I think it's a funny one. In January of this year, 2023, Robert Horry was attending his son's high school basketball game between St. Francis High and Harvard Westlake when he was ejected for heckling a referee. Was not coaching. He was just a fan supporting his team. Wasn't a fan of the Zebras, and the Zebra told him to go home.
Just like sports dads who do that.
Listen, probably not a great look, but if that ref knew any ball, he would have recognized that Robert Horry has 7 rings. So if Robert Horry is saying that he did something wrong,
might be the one parent you listen to.
just the one. If I were him, I would be like the most obnoxious dick ever showing up to these high school games. I would wear all 7 rings.
The McDonald's All-American game, what do you think it is like to be a referee that might have to call a foul on Bronny James while LeBron James is sitting courtside?
It has to be terrifying. I mean, arguably more intimidating than calling a foul on LeBron James. Because LeBron James, when you're in that mindset of on the court, you have to keep a certain level of decorum. You're probably not going to go full out. But, I mean, fans really let him have it. A fully empowered LeBron James who doesn't have to worry about costing his team if he gets ejected, that is a terrifying sports parent. But also terrifying is if you're on the other end of any pass that was swung to Robert Horry with the game on the line, because with the exception of that one shot that he missed, not everything comes up gold. So unless you were on the 0-3 Spurs, if you were on the other end of a shot from Big Shot Rob, it was going to go poorly. Big Shot Rob was going to make it. Big Shot Rob is the glue that holds together 3 of the greatest dynasties of our lifetimes. Without Robert Horry, there's no three-peat. There's no back-to-back in Houston. Tim Duncan probably gets a few rings in there.
Tim Duncan had already won 2 by the time Robert Horry got there.
Right, he already had 2. But does he get 3 and 4? Who knows?
People are asking.
People are asking. But what people shouldn't be asking is if Robert Horry is a guy, because that is one of the greatest guys in the long storied history of the NBA.
I mean, far be it from me to deny a Spurs legend. And here's the important thing. If he had stayed on the Lakers for one more season, if he was on the Derek Fisher Lakers team, this would probably be an immediate no. He got out at the exact right moment. So we can absolutely have this discussion.
Derek Fisher was on those Lakers teams.
I know he was on those, but he was not on the Derek Fisher 0.4 second team.
Yeah, fair. There you go. Yeah, not the point.
There is a very specific Derek Fisher Lakers team when I, as Spurs fan, talk about the Derek Fisher Lakers.
That is totally fair. He was the glue that kept the team together after that devastating shot that then rallied back the next year and won a championship.
Because he did get out in time, we can have a conversation with him. But we can't have a conversation about these 2. We need to have a conversation about 3. And so, Xavier, if you would not mind, I got a fever, and the only prescription is more guys.
So, my story is going to be a little different than both of yours. And there's going to be some table setting that needs to be done. I'm assuming the answer to this is no, but have either of you heard of the term rugby boys before?
I would assume they are boys that play rugby.
Yeah, boys playing rugby.
That is not what they are. So, in a bit of coincidence, we are going back to the Philippines. For background, as Diaz had brought up at the beginning of this episode, there is a very high poverty rate in the Philippines. To make things look better officially, the Philippine government has the poverty level set at about the equivalent of $220 per month for a family of 5.
They do the thing the U.S. did when we were like, man, we have a really high obese population. We should change what the definition of obesity is.
Yeah, this one, even more blatant than that. So, poverty level, $220 per month for a family of 5. Cost of living for a family of 4 is estimated about $1,800 USD per month in cities, a little less in rural areas. So, although the official poverty rate is about 14%, broken down by individual, more than 50% of the population lives on less than $6 per day. As you can imagine, this level of poverty can lead to not good things. And one of these not good things is families abandoning children that they cannot afford. Currently, there's an estimated 250,000, what they officially refer to as street children in the Philippines. They break this term down into 3 categories. The first is children who work on the streets, but do have homes. Essentially, kids who, instead of going to school or doing anything else, go out to just beg for money and then bring it back home. Then there's children on the street who band together with other children to create makeshift families, essentially like groups of roving children.
The kids from Oliver Twist.
And then completely abandoned children who are all on their own. The latter 2 groups make up about 30 to 40% of that 250,000. If I were to talk about all of the terrible things that these children have to deal with to survive, no one would want to listen to it because it's a lot and they're all very bad. But there is one thing that is a big issue that I wanted to talk about, and it's called rugby, and it is not the sport. So, rugby boys is a term used for street children who are addicted to a brand of glue that is called rugby. And
What fuck are you about to tell us about Xavier?
I'm getting there. So, according to the Philippine Department of Social Welfare and Development, about half of all street children in the Philippines have at least sniffed rugby or other inhalants at least once. Addiction is widespread because a large bottle of rugby costs about $1, and they portion it out into like multiple bags to inhale. This is obviously severely dangerous, causes irreversible liver, kidney, brain, and heart damage. It allegedly makes people forget hunger, forget in air quotes. So starving children who can't afford to eat will just puff rugby glue.
Hey, hon, what's for dinner? Brain damage.
It's actually really fucked. There's a documentary where they follow one teenager who was addicted to rugby for 5 years and found like how much it destroyed his body. It's a bad time. But with all of this out of the way, all this background, all this context, today I want to tell you both about Lito Ramirez.
And
Lito.
will he play sport at any point, or is his connection to sport
we're-
exclusively the glue?
We're gonna get there. Don't you worry. So we don't actually know when and where Lito was born because he doesn't know. He was already begging on the streets of Quezon City in the Manila area as a small child. Lito has no memory of his parents, doesn't remember their names. He's talked about how he hopes one day to find out that they're still alive and reunite with them, but doesn't really seem likely at this point. After his parents disappeared, again, we do not know if they abandoned him intentionally, if they died. But him and his older brother Jay were passed to someone who was nominally called an uncle, but who they didn't know. This man was a drug addict, and he forced Lito and Jay to beg on the streets for money to further his own drug habit. While on the streets, they were introduced to rugby and became addicted as well. Eventually, they get abandoned by this nominal uncle and spend years living on the streets of Metro Manila, sniffing rugby, digging through trash, begging, and running from police. Philippine police are notorious for taking a no-mercy approach to drugs at all, and that includes shooting and killing children. So this is like serious consequences. Lito said that during these times, we slept wherever the night caught up with us. One day, a random woman sees the two brothers on the street and leads them to an orphanage that she knows about. With no documentation, the orphanage gives Lito the birthday of March 17th, the day they took him in. They guessed his age from there and just gave him that birthday. So we don't know how old he is technically. We don't know his actual birthday. And they gave him the last name Ramirez, which was just the last name of the woman who brought him and Jay in. So there's very little that we actually know about his full background. Lito and Jay bounce around a couple different shelters. During this time, Lito is able to break his addiction to rugby, solely due to the fact that he's cut off from it. He has no access to it. Eventually, they end up at a group home called Tuloy sa Don Bosco, which focuses on teaching abandoned children a trade to essentially get them into the workforce. So at this time, he's nominally 11. That's just what they assume his age is at this point. And they train him to become a baker. To keep the kids busy, counselors there also wanted the kids to choose sports to play. Lito, they offered him to play soccer or basketball, but he wasn't interested in either of them, so he refused. Then they asked him if he wanted to give rugby a try.
And he was probably like, no, I just kicked rugby, god damn it.
He said, quote, "I didn't have any idea it was a sport. I thought it was the glue. That's why I chose rugby for sports." He thought they were offering him the drug that he had kicked, and so he said yes, as this 11-year-old. And this misunderstanding changes his life.
What the fuck is this story?
So my initial idea, Xavier, I thought I was going dark. There's a horse that was raised in my hometown, West Grove, Barbaro. And he was this incredible horse. And I remember watching a great HBO documentary about him. But then he broke his leg and he eventually got put down. And we all know what happens to horses when they get put down. So I thought he was a great glue guy. And I thought I was being morbid with that thought. But Xavier, you are telling us that because this person quite simply thought they were going to be able to get high again, we now are on a burgeoning guy.
Yes, that is exactly what I'm telling you. So, Lito immediately took to rugby the sport, and from now on I will talk about rugby as a sport and not as a glue that was used as a drug. Despite his short stature, even now he's only 5'6", he was fast and hard to tackle. Lito and his fellow orphans watched YouTube videos of famous New Zealand rugby players and then learned to try to imitate their movements. Their little orphan school ended up starting beating a lot of local clubs in rugby, and people started noticing him. In 2012, he joined the Mavericks Rugby Club, which was founded by some New Zealand expats. By 2014, he was added to the Philippines National Men's Development Squad. 1 year later, as part of the Clark Jets, Lito participated in the Philippine National Games and won the gold medal in rugby sevens. As an aside, there are two main forms of rugby. There's rugby union, which is 2 teams of 15 players each. Then there's rugby sevens, which, as its name implies, is 2 teams of 7 players each. Sevens is much more popular in Africa and Asia, while union is more popular in Europe and European associated countries like Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. But rugby sevens is the one that we're talking about here. November 2015, Lito becomes the first player from the Philippine Union grassroots program to be selected to be part of the Philippine Volcanoes national men's rugby sevens team. Even today, almost every player on both the rugby union and rugby sevens teams in the Philippines are American or otherwise foreign born but have a Filipino parent. That's pretty much like the only way they built out their squad. Lito is the first and still one of the very few Filipino born and bred players on this national team. So he gets to compete in the Asian Rugby 7 qualifiers for a spot in the 2016 Olympic Games. Jake Letts, who is the GM of the Philippine Rugby, said of him, his strength is his speed and his agility. It's really hard for a big guy to catch him, and when they do catch him, it can be really painful. We get to the Rugby Sevens qualifiers, and Lito scores his first ever international try to seal a victory against Iran. There's a fantastic photo of him being carried off the field by his teammates in celebration. But the Philippines are also very bad at rugby, and they do get eliminated and do not make it to the Olympics. Still a really good moment for Lito, though. After this, he goes on to get a rugby scholarship for a 4-week training course at the Inside Rugby Academy in New Zealand, and he parlays that into a job with the Philippine Rugby Union, where now he is their resource development officer, where he goes out to schools and universities to help teach kids about rugby. There's a lot of really cool videos of him just going around with like little kids, showing them the proper way to carry a rugby ball. And he does still play on the side. Like he recently played for a team called SKF Makati Mavericks as a wingback alongside his brother Jay in some local competitions in Luzon. Done a couple more things for the national team, but nothing as big as those 2015 qualifiers. It's really hard to find statistics because a lot of things are only in Tagalog.
Well, also, rugby statistics in general, it's not a sport that has great stat keeping, really.
He's also a defender, a back, so he does not score. He scores very, very infrequently in the things that we do know of. So there's really very little stuff to go off of. But I watched a bunch of videos in Tagalog of him, which were great because I just got to enjoy watching them, but you can't really get anything out of it unless you know Tagalog. I also try to get a Philippine Volcanoes jersey because they're only $36, but they do not ship them to the USA.
Bastards.
I know, they're really cool. The Volcanoes is such a great name. And it's actually pretty funny because after the Rugby World Cup, they do like a trophy tour where they take the trophy all over the world to all different rugby playing nations. And there is a video of Lito spinning a rugby ball on top of an active volcano when the trophy came to the Philippines.
So the image that I have in my head right now that I'm enjoying is like, obviously the Philippines. Is Rodrigo Duterte still the president?
No, he's not. It's worse.
Awesome.
The dictator who was kicked out of the country and fled after stealing billions of dollars, and was sent to exile. His son is
Came
now
back.
president. His son is now president.
Well, so I imagine they have. Well, they probably don't even have dare programs because they just kill you. But the picture I've had is him, he's training these kids in rugby. So in one classroom, he's like, yeah, guys, here's all the things that rugby can do to help improve your life. And then he goes to the next classroom where he's got an anti-drug talk. He's like, let me tell you about how fucking terrible rugby is.
I watched a interview from like a French outlet, but again, it was all in Tagalog. And they had like a dramatization of him and Jay with like bags of glue inhalant. And they had like the big word like in Tagalog, what they like, so I couldn't read it fully, but I was like, this is definitely just as dramatization on it. Because they did not actually film two kids. At least I hope they really did. They didn't film two kids do that.
I have no words.
You know what? I found this and I said, I'm doing this because no one else will. And because it's actually just kind of cool how a street kid who, based on all likelihoods, would have been expected to die like as a child, dreadfully addicted to a glue called rugby, became an actual rugby player, the first Philippine-born player for the Philippine national rugby team, and now is just living a good life teaching kids about rugby. The good kind of rugby and not the bad kind of rugby.
My question is, like, did you just happen upon this? Did you, like, search, like, glue as a drug, but the guy actually ends up playing sports? Like, what was the Google search that led you to
Glue
Lito
guy
Ramirez?
rugby.
Glue guy rugby.
So you didn't even know necessarily that glue is a drug called rugby?
No, had absolutely no idea.
God, I
Because-
wish I had a camera on you when you had that realization.
This thing, if you right now Google search glue guy rugby, the third hit is rugby boy, and then a couple hits down just goes down into Philippines-based orphan goes from sniffing rugby glue to playing sport for national team. I was like,
How can you possibly resist that
That's the
headline?
one.
Thus gave us our third guy, and now our guy Bunel has these three glue guys to discuss. And I'm gonna say, I love me some Tully, and I was so ready to vote for Robert Horry. It is tough to say no to a guy whose entire career is based around, whose life was based around glue at one point. I thought I was being obnoxiously literal when I picked Stormcat as a workhorse. This is maybe the most obnoxiously literal candidate we have ever had brought up for consideration.
I had to do it.
And that is worth honoring, I think. I mean, I don't want to just make this, like, easy. It is an impressive pool, Xavier, but when we go to what was the intention of the prompt, that's where I think Lito falls apart a little bit. And that's where our stronger glue guys are holding it together.
The thing you have to realize, though, is Lito was not the best rugby player, but he was a very positive one who everybody loved. And they loved him so much they gave him a job to get other people to love the sport. Like, he was both a glue guy and a glue guy in the meaning that you originally intended.
It's really good. It's really good. Like, I don't want to just blow past Tully and Robert, but god damn it, Xavier. How proud of yourself are you?
I mean, I was really worried when Diaz made the Barbaro joke in our group chat. I was like, no, stay away from anything that has to do with that, please, God.
Goodness. Real quick, just so we can have a little bit more conversation, who's our second place between Tully and Robert?
I like Tully as the second place. I like Big Shot Rob, but I also think of him as like a clutch guy or a serial winner before I would think of him as a glue guy. Because my idea of like the glue guy in that sense is someone who I wouldn't think of as a major part, like statistically, of a team, but like more of a locker room presence. When I think of Robert Horry, I'm like, fucking won 7 rings. It made big shots all the time. Like, of course I know who Robert Horry is.
He won 7 rings, but he started, let me take a look just to make sure I get this number absolutely correct. He won 7 rings and he only started 480 of his 1,107 games. I mean, that's a not insignificant part, but also in the NBA where a sixth man can play
as much time as a starter.
Here comes the Emmanuel Quickly case.
I love Emmanuel Quickly. But no, I mean, I like Robert Horry. I just think of him when I think of like, the idea of human guy light reel. It's like,
ooh, how have we never said that before? My God.
That's a good pull.
His highlight to like rest of his career ratio is off the charts. Like that's what I think of when I think of Robert Horry.
Well, and we haven't said this in a while, but he's got some incredible butter guy effect moments with dismantling the Magic so that Shaquille O'Neal later helps him win several of his championships before then leaving those Lakers to whoop their ass a couple times with the Spurs. I'm going to give my second place vote to Robert Horry. None of it matters because I don't think we can do anything but give this to Lito Ramirez.
I mean, yeah, like, and I guess just to further counterpoint you, Xavier, with Tully, we have the very clear example that she was very effective glue in Seattle. But personally, for my glue guy, I need a multi-purpose adhesive. I need something.
The opals. Don't forget, only gold that the Australians women national team went was when Lauren Jackson called in that special bottle of glue that she knew. Very fair.
Very fair. But even then, we are now only brought to 2 teams, which were successfully held together by Tully.
For most people, 2 championships is pretty good. Admittedly, we are discussing Robert Horry.
Exactly. No, it's everything is, don't look at your neighbor's hand. They might have more rings than yours. Tully is very impressive. There's no denying that. But as you said, James, I mean, it's all academic as far as second place, because this guy Bunel, I think we all knew in the moment that it was what we had to do.
I am glad that you went last so that we didn't have to spend one of our segments thinking, I mean, what the fuck is the point?
I mean, this is why I asked specifically to go last, because one, for vibes purposes, also in case you guys did like it, I want it to be last.
Well, it seems that we did like it in a unanimous sense. Diaz, would you do the honors?
Of course. I mean, there have been a lot of Litos that have caught my affection throughout my life. Lito Shepherd, great cornerback for the Eagles for a long time. But there's now a second Lito that is carving in and making some space for himself. The Lito that went from big glue guy to being a glue guy. He might be playing for and coaching and teaching about rugby sevens, but he's number 1 in our hearts. And he's going to be number 1 into the Hall from this week. Welcome to the Hall of Guy, Lito Ramirez.
What an absolutely stunning performance by both pro and anti-rugby Filipino, Lito Ramirez. And with that, folks, we bring another episode of Remember That Guy to close. We got some slightly offbeat episodes coming up because our dear friend Xavier, perhaps by the time you're listening to this or slightly after you do, will be on that sweet jet plane taking him across the Pacific Ocean to the land of the rising sun to see those beautiful yogurt birds, the Tokyo Yakult Swallows. Xavier, we wish you the absolute best in health. I think we've got some really fun stuff planned the next couple weeks. I do think you guys are still going to enjoy it. We got a great guest both of the next 2 weeks, honestly. While Xavier's away, Diaz and I are just going to talk about some of our favorite teams and completely ignore everything else.
Don't worry. You will get a weekly mental breakdown about the Philadelphia 76ers. I can still promise those because we always deliver on this podcast.
And folks, another thing to look forward to this summer, in addition to some excellent episodes coming up throughout the summer, is, as we mentioned before, a matchup that we've all had circled on the calendars since the moment WNBA free agency began, and that is the August 6th matchup between my beloved Las Vegas Aces and Xavier and sort of Diaz's beloved New York Liberty. We have officially gotten our tickets. We've got our group going. If you want to get in on it, get to the Barclays Center August 6th. Join us for what is sure to be an absolutely raucous time as the Aces absolutely mollywop the New York Liberty on the way to their second straight title.
I do think, I'm thinking what would be the funniest bit that I could do. And going Robert Lowe and just wearing my orange hoodie doesn't seem good enough. James, would you punch me if I got a jersey of both teams and alternately as they exchange the lead, I just keep switching which jersey I have on?
I would think that's the funniest fucking bit you've ever committed to in your life. Are you kidding me?
And it's a bit that costs money too, because I'm gonna have to buy 2 jerseys. But I think I think Asia Wilson and Breonna Stewart are about to both see their metrics go up a little bit.
And hey, when Philly gets a team, I'll take that Asia Wilson jersey off your hands, buddy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think now I have to do it. I think I have to do it now.
I'm sure someday I will get to thank you for my beloved Las Vegas Aces jersey. In the meantime, I would like to thank the listeners for joining us. Thank you to all the coders behind producer Craig Bott and, of course, our musical director, Don Ham, for our absolutely thrilling theme music. I think that's all we got this week, though, folks. So feel free to come join us next time. But until then, I've been James.
I've been the very special guest, Xavier.
And I'm Diaz. And breaking news, Cottonelle just released their strongest toilet paper yet. 2 guy.